Welcome to Wolf Tales, where you'll be hearing stories from our own staff and volunteers here at Wolf Connection. We'll also be speaking with artists, photographers, videographers, and musicians about the way the wolf has influenced their work. All right, it's a first for Stephen and I on the podcast as we have a four-way Zoom going on, so we're going to do our best today. But this is a really interesting group that we have gathered together today and really was reached out to us here at the podcast to talk about. So we have Monica Stahlmann, who the pen name Leo Katia George wrote the book Trumpet, the Miracle Wolf Pup. So she is joining us from White Plains, New York. It's a wonderful children's book that I read through that talks about the birth of this female Mexican gray wolf at the Wolf Conservation Center. And we have Regan Downey, who is joining us from Stamford, Connecticut, who is the director of education at the Wolf Conservation Center. So thank you both, first of all, for joining us. And just real quick, how are you both doing? And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for letting me talk about my book. I'm excited about it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to talk more about wolves in the Wolf Center and ways people can help support them.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. So Monica, I first want to go to you. What led you to write this book? Because I know you and Regan have been working together, it seems, for quite some time. And just for those of you that are listening, so the wolf's name is F1505. She is not the first Mexican gray that's been born at the Wolf Conservation Center, but she is the most famous, and I guess the one that's really taken a liking. So, Monica, how did you come across this process about wanting to write this children's book?
Yeah, so it was actually two kind of things that led me to write this book. First is that it was actually my nephew. My sister-in-law, she loves wolves, and she always talks about them nicely. He has awesome T-shirts, wolf T-shirts. And of course, I also try to educate him about wolves. He was really young at the time. And, I play wolf games with him where the wolf hides when people come because wolves are actually really scared of humans. So I spoke with my brother one day and he said, he had a nightmare. And so I was like, well, how does that happen? And basically kids talk. So it's, of course, the big bad wolf. One kid knows about the big bad wolf and the wolf is going to eat you. So he had a nightmare. And so it definitely upset me. And also at the same time, I'm learning about Trumpet's story, which is awesome. It's really cute story. It's an inspiring story. And so those two things kind of came together and I was like, this has to be a book. So I reached out to the executive director at the Wolf Center and, said, what do you think? Can I write a book about Trumpet? And she was like, go for it. So super supportive. And so there you go.
So what's the process like for you? This is your first book, I imagine, right? So what's that like for you as a creative now and as an author to jump into this blinders on kind of and going at it at your own pace and trying to figure out how you want the story to be told and how you want it laid out illustration wise as well?
It was super intimidating. This is not something I went to school for or anything like that. So, I was coming at this blind. But the story itself, it kind of wrote itself because it is based on her story. So that made it a lot easier. And then, for the most part, you have to make it adaptable to kids. So that was a little bit of a challenge, editing. But, it just was an interesting process. what I found most challenging is all the bureaucracy with, publishing and, trying to do that. And I went with Briley and Baxter publications. They were really awesome. And the illustrator, Maddie Moore, she actually works with the publications. So that also made it easier.
That's great. It really sounds like a family and a communal type situation where you can make this book the way that I think you have your vision. So for Regan, for you and the individuals at the Wolf Conservation Center, how did she become involved with you all? And you being the director of education, you must have, I would imagine you love this idea as something that you guys can promote, but also can use as a learning tool for the WCC as well.
Definitely. So I might get the years wrong, Monica, but Monica began volunteering with the Wolf Conservation Center a few years ago, actually as an education volunteer. And so she was assisting with our public programs, communicating a lot of important wolf facts to the general public. So talking to kids, talking to adults. And I imagine that partially spurred the desire to write a book, but also maybe some of that comfort level with how to craft language for people of all ages. And throughout her years at the center, Monica began to become a bit more involved with the center itself in terms of some of the behind the scenes work that has to go into just essentially running a facility that, has 30 plus wolves at any given moment. But what is really great about the book is it's so inspiring for people. One of the things we always try to drive home to visitors is that they can help wolves and they can help teach people about them. And there are many ways to do that because not everyone is comfortable writing a letter to the Fish and Wildlife Service, encouraging them to relist gray wolves. But some people might be more comfortable using some of their artistic talents, whether it's creating a picture or writing a book. And so Monica's book really shows people that there are many ways to save wolves and ways to raise awareness. And so I think that's really one of the most impactful parts about the book is that we can use it to show people that they can save wolves at any level.
Do you get the sense that generations of these big bad wolf narratives have really been underestimated in terms of their effect on real life conservation? And how important do you both feel it is to change that narrative at the level of children's learning?
Yeah, I think it is super important that big bad wolf image, it sticks so solidly. It's an image that is hard to shake. And, for that reason, the more books about wolves in a positive light, whether it be something that's silly or funny, or if that's something more emotion driven or educational, the more that we can get out there, especially to the younger kids, the better. Because, with just those two powerhouse big bad wolf books, it's a huge hurdle to overcome.
And going off of what Monica mentioned, I know at the Wolf Conservation Center, in a lot of our messaging, we try to highlight how wolves are amazing, just so people are more familiar with wolves on an everyday basis. And so it's not something where they necessarily have to sit down and watch a movie about wolves or be very kind of focused on learning about wolves. We're trying to make wolves more of a passive, everyday part of people's lives. And so rather than being the big bad wolf, wolves are loving, wolves are family oriented, wolves are strong. And so rather than fearing them, we should highlight these good qualities and try to be more like them. And I think that's something that's great about books and even just seeing wolves in person. You're able to touch on certain aspects that might not be conveyed in popular culture.
Yeah, I think the family aspect is such a huge positive point to drive home. And Monica, you hit that so well with the book because you talk about, with Trumpet's mom and dad and how really not just the wolf pack, but the human pack at Wolf Conservation Center is taking care of the wolves. They're constantly working towards hoping that there's going to be a litter that there's going to be pups. And then when Trumpet eventually is revealed that she's born, it's really just this, it's a joyous occasion, which I think is something that is wonderful to drive home. Regan, I'll go to Regan first and then Monica to you. So Regan, when Trumpet was born, what was that like? And what made her was she instantly famous, or did her legend, I guess, kind of grow as the years went on or as the months went on as she was a pup?
We actually had 4 pups born the same year as Trumpet, but she was the only pup born to her parents. Their names are Rosa and Diego. And they were an older couple. Rosa was actually the very first Mexican gray wolf born at the Wolf Conservation Center back in 2008. But we were, I think everyone's always excited for pups, but Mexican gray wolves are such an endangered type of wolf. At the moment, there's only 186 left in the wild, and they all descend from just 7 genetic founders. And so having pups born is really crucial for the survival of the species. But it also means every wolf that's born has the potential chance to be released into the wild. And that's the ultimate goal. So that is exciting just from a broad species standpoint. But we were also very excited for Rosa and Diego as well, because they were able to raise a pup together. And it was wonderful to watch the family interactions and see how they adapted to raising a pup. But we also have live streaming webcams, and that really helped Trumpet become quite as famous as she did because people were watching her every move. And so they were watching her take her first steps, learn to howl, playing with her 2 parents. And I think especially because she was an only child and didn't have any siblings to play with, that people really gravitated towards her and really wanted her to have the best life possible. So she did become famous very quickly. And I think also having that cute name really helped as well. Even though all of our wolves get those alphanumeric names, the F for female, M for male, and then a number that corresponds to essentially their stud book number. It's not very catchy, but giving wolves names that are fun or remind them of people or have special meanings can really help connect people to these animals, that especially animals they're not seeing. And so I think Trumpet's cute personality, cute name, and our webcams really kind of catapulted her to stardom. So really fun for her.
Monica, did you see that were you selecting Trumpet because of what was going on, or how? I don't know if I asked that in the beginning, but how was Trumpet? Because I love the portion of the book where it's so drawn out very well. I'm trying not to give too much away, but where she's howling in her little pen, and so you realize that Trumpet is there, and we weren't sure if there were pups yet. So what was your draw to Trumpet, and why did she connect with you on a different level so that she could be the focus of your book?
So it really was the fact. So for kids, miracles are really important. They don't really understand everything that happens in life. So they often view things that happen positively as miracles. So she is known as a miracle pup. So that was one of the things in my opinion, I was like, she's got to have a book for kids because that'll be so relatable to kids. And also the family aspect about it. Kids, their worlds are a lot smaller. They're just basically their family, really close friends, caretakers, siblings, and wolf packs, their families. So, just to see that connection, that love that comes through, that supportiveness, that was something that I really wanted to come forth through in the book. So it clicked as far as when I started to hear snippets of her story. It was just something like, this has to be a children's book.
And was it difficult for you to, because you said the editing process took some time. Was it really a challenge for you to pare the writing and also the illustrations down to where it's something that can connect with someone that is so much younger? Say, I don't know what the age range of the book is, but I imagine it's, the 3 to 7 or 8 year old range. Am I right in that aspect? So what was that? Yeah. What was that like for you to really carve out this narrative that's going to be able to be functionally relatable for someone that's at that stage of their growth?
Right. So one of the things with children's books is that, you just can't overwhelm children with too much text. And so, of course, for each page that I wrote, I could have written a full page with descriptions. And, but of course, there's a lot of, what do I take out? What do I take out? I had the text written before I reached out to the publisher. And then that's when the illustrations came about. And she did an amazing job. And I threw her a little curveball because I really wanted the kids to connect with the wolves. So if you notice throughout the book, you never actually see the people's faces. You see maybe a side view or a cap covering, but the wolves you do, and that was by design. And I actually spoke with the people who are in the book, and I said, this is not anything personal, but I do want the kids to see the wolves' eyes and the wolves' faces, the emotions on the wolves' faces. And of course, they're wolf people. They were like, yeah, of course. So it really did work out. One thing that was a challenge for me, and this is something that I thought about early on and decided was an absolute must. I do have a big word in the book, and that's 2 words, critically endangered, because these wolves are critically endangered. And that was something that, I really thought about. And I said, I can do this, and kids can do this. They don't have to, as the 3-year-old is not going to understand exactly what critically endangered is. But I wrote it in a way that you read it, and then there's a simple definition. And just that process, that little kid's going to know that word, those words are important. And that was something that I really thought had to be in there. And then secondly, it is actually appealing to some older kids, some 8-year-olds. They're tending to really like it, and I'm getting good feedback from them. And they're the ones that might be reading this to their younger siblings. And also, it's an opening to kind of talk about endangered species and to learn more about these wolves. And like Regan said, they've got webcams up, they've got more, educational platforms there. So it really does open the door.
No, I love that. And to that end, Regan, what is it like for you on a daily basis, really, to try and convey these topics that sometimes can go over younger individuals' heads? Like Monica was saying, critically endangered, and understanding the peril that especially is equated to Mexican gray wolves. How do you at Wolf Conservation Center try and make those topics, being able to get their way into the younger generation's brains or a kid's brain so that they can grasp it, hold on to it, and in some way have it impact them?
Sure. And that is something that's very important. And we really approach it at a few different levels. So when we have 4-year-olds visit the center, all we want is for them to like wolves. At that point, we're not trying to get into the super nitty-gritty about species and Endangered Species Act. What's most important for really anyone of any age is that they like wolves. And then from that, we can then branch off into those more kind of specific discussions. But I also think we sometimes underestimate people and their intelligence levels. And so we don't hold back. Monica mentioned she chose to put in critically endangered, and we speak to kids about that as well. It's important for people to understand what wolves are facing. And we can certainly follow up with an explanation. But I think having those discussions while also looking at wolves makes it very easy for people to understand. At the moment, we have 21 Mexican gray wolves that live at our center. Only 2 of them are potentially visible to the public during our education programs, but we do have 3 gray wolves that serve as representatives for all of the wolves at the center. And for some people, they serve as representatives for wild wolves because very few people are ever fortunate enough to see a wolf in the wild. And so we find that even discussing topics that can be harder to grasp or upsetting, if you're showing wolves at the same time, it helps diffuse any tension, any sadness or frustration, but it also helps really cement it in people's minds because they understand these are wolves that are directly impacted. And so I think that really helps communicate some of those broader concepts.
It really is something we've seen here many times where having a physical wolf in the room really does seem to help somehow break down barriers to information absorption and I think willingness to participate. So it's interesting that you mentioned that in the context of your work as well.
Definitely. I think, people learn in all different ways, but I think really having a visual aspect really just helps take that learning just a bit further.
Yeah, I agree with both. I agree with all of you. It's something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast is that it's almost wolves for whatever reason seem to be this mirror to humans and looking at themselves and understanding maybe where their passion for them comes either lovingly or hatefully or whatever, anti or pro. And it just seems to be, for whatever reason, this species brings all of that out in us because we've interacted with them for probably longer than any other species, maybe other than the horse at some point in our combined histories. Monica, I want to ask you, because when you started volunteering, what was the pull for you to go to the Wolf Conservation Center? Did you go on a visit? Did you see there were opportunities to volunteer? What drew you in to be a part of this organization at first?
So again, it was actually my sister-in-law. So I do have a lot to thank to her for all this because she absolutely loves wolves. But she was visiting here with my brother, and they were from Italy, or they're still in Italy, but they were here for about a week and a half. They wanted to see, she found the Wolf Center and she said, I want to go visit. I want to see the wolves. And of course, I'm like, I didn't know this Wolf Center existed. And so I'm like, oh, where's this? Oh, it's in South Salem. Oh, okay. And unfortunately, we were not able to visit. It was all booked out. For people wanting to go visit the Wolf Center and do it early. And so, which was upsetting for her. But, for me, I basically was like, well, I live here, so, I'm going to go. So I tried to go a couple times with some friends, and both times it fell through. But I noticed on their site said volunteer opportunities. So I was like, okay, that works for me. I don't mind volunteering. I love volunteering. And then I'll get to see the wolves. And so that's how I actually got started. And it was from that point that I was hooked. Once I laid eyes on the wolves, and I was like, this is absolutely amazing. And the Wolf Center is an amazing place. They're very supportive. Any questions you ever have, they take the time out, talk with you, and it's just a very positive atmosphere. And of course, what they're doing to conserve wolves is so important. So that's kind of how I got there, and been there since.
And Monica, I can only speak for myself, really. I can't say if John agrees or not, but for me, when I started working with wolves, I had an idea of maybe what it would be. And over the years, it showed up in very different ways and sort of transformed over and over again. Do you feel you had a similar experience where, you're seeing this great opportunity, it's nearby, it's different, working with animals always seems like a fun idea, of course, but how has it changed for you over time, your understanding of what you're really experiencing?
Oh, yeah. So one thing that surprised me, I didn't expect to have such a connection with the wolves. There is something that when they look at you, it's it's as if they know you almost better than yourself. When people say, when you look at a wolf, you can see your soul, that you can. It's almost this as if they look inside of you, and it's a very spiritual experience. That's the best way that I can describe it. I didn't expect that because I volunteered with animals, and this is not to say anything bad about any other animals, but there is something about when they look at you, it is a different connection. That's I think one of the biggest things that I took from that. But also, when I went there, I didn't know that there were Mexican gray wolves or red wolves. I didn't know that. And so it opened my eyes because I thought, I was pretty well educated about, environmental issues and endangered species. And that kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah. It's a lot. And I agree with both of you. Yeah, I love that because it's so, again, it's a spiritual level type of an experience that maybe not everyone gets it, but I think if you've been immersed in it for so long, there is just a different type of feeling. There's a different type of draw that keeps people in places like this at Wolf Connection for us, for Wolf Conservation Center for both of you. And to that end, Regan, what is that like for you in your position to really balance out the educational aspect, but also sort of that mystical, magical part? Because Stephen and I find that a lot at Wolf Connection, where you want to really drive the points home about the species itself and making it an informational experience so that people understand what's actually going on. But how are you able to mix both of those aspects, especially being the education director? How are you able to feed into if someone has those type of experiences or has those type of questions? What's your way to do that or deal with it?
Well, I think a lot of the visitors we get to our center in a normal year, but understanding normal is very different now, but we typically have around 20,000 on-site visitors. And I think a majority of the visitors come because they think of wolves as these mythical beings. And so they've built up this image in their heads, and that's why they're coming. And that's fine. If that's what gets them through the door, great. They're interested. They want to see wolves. But it is really important that they don't continue to think of wolves as mythical beings, because wolves are wolves. They're important for ecosystems, but they're existing. They're here right now. And so rather than just, coming to see a wolf as a novelty, I think it's really important to make sure people understand that even though we don't have any wolves near us, there are still wolves in the world that do need help. They do need support, and they're not living these magical, mystical lives. They're living lives that are threatened, lives that are being challenged. And so it's fine to like wolves and think of them as these beautiful beings. We all think that, but we should also be aware that they are actual animals that need help as well, and need protections and support.
I think that's, and you said it really, really well. And that's what I do like. That's what I do enjoy, Monica, about the book. And I think what you both do so well is that you're giving this beautiful story about this birth at Wolf Conservation Center, talking about Trumpet, but you being able to inform while also giving this really sort of this light story to people is a challenge in and of itself, but it's done so well in the short, because children books are not long. And so I think in the short amount of pages that you did this in, I think comes across really well. And it's relatable, and it's something that children can really grasp. I mean, me being a 30-something, I can grasp it, I would hope. But I think it's something that you can see. I can see, maybe my young nephews or younger kids that I'm aware of in my family, they would gravitate towards this book and be able to get the message, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Yeah. It really is, for me, it was that emotional connection that I really wanted to push forward. And of course, with children's book, it really does need to be uplifting. I mean, and when you're talking about an endangered species, that is a little bit challenging because that's not, so hooray story. It was important for me to put the celebratory a moment in there, and also, of course, a happy ending. And so that was something that I had to work towards.
No, and I think it came out really well, and it works so good because it is, the fact is that it's it's actually a non-fictional happy ending, because it's a wolf that was born along with other pups in that same litter, that Trumpet is alive and well. She's doing, she's living her best life right now at the Wolf Conservation Center. Regan, for those, are you guys integrating the book into your educational curriculum? Are you talking about it? Are you reading it to classes? How is Trumpet's story working for you all at the Wolf Conservation Center now?
Well, we are certainly promoting Monica's book. We've actually had several volunteers over the years craft projects that raise awareness for wolves in some way. Monica's is unique in that it's based on a wolf at the Wolf Center, but it also reaches a very specific age group. Previous volunteer projects haven't hit that age group before, so that was really important. But as you've mentioned, and as Monica has mentioned, what is so great about the book is that it is based on the true story. And so we do talk about Trumpet during all of our program. Well, we have other wolves that deserve highlights as well. So Trumpet's not always the rock star during programs, but she's certainly discussed, she's certainly mentioned. And our programs right now are altered slightly. So they're not what we might envision for a lot of our school programs, as they might have been in previous years. But when we finish a program, regardless of the age group, we always tell people how they can help wolves, because it's one thing to learn, but when you leave, you should be empowered to take another step. And so we like to give people a broad range of things they can do depending on comfort levels. And so having Monica not only as a volunteer, because that's one way to, of course, support wolves, but as a volunteer who then took her extra time, but very limited extra time that she has, Monica's quite busy, but use that to write a book based on a wolf that she knows, to benefit an organization that she works for. It really shows a lot of different ways people can help save wolves. And so I think that, I know for me personally, but I think for the Wolf Center in terms of education, that's what's most inspiring about Monica's book, is more so the fact that Monica wrote it and is taking her experiences here, that they touched her so deeply that she wrote a book about it. Because Trumpet's a rock star in her own right. But I think this shows that Monica is also a bit of a rock star when it comes to wolves as well. Because not everyone has that desire or that urge to help and raise awareness. So I think that's what's been most inspiring for us.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's so valuable for younger generations and children as well, and even some adults, I believe, to see people that have dedicated at least a portion of their life to volunteering, conservation, working with animals, whether it be wolves or otherwise. I think the draw and what we see at Wolf Connection, and what I'm sure you probably see at Wolf Conservation Center, is that people that work with a species such as wolves, and to have the love, the care, the experiences that we all have, I think is something that hopefully ripples out for a lot of people that might, when they come in initially, have one way of thinking, or it might switch them, or it grows what the thinking they already have. So I feel like that's such a powerful point that you just said, Regan, and to Monica's book, I think, like you said, it's just somebody who's volunteering their time, going the extra step and putting something else out into the world and not just being a volunteer. I think that's a huge, huge gift that people can see, they can tangibly hold it, they can read it, and all these other things. So I want to touch on this too, Monica. So a portion of the proceeds of the book is going to the Wolf Conservation Center, correct? Is that how are you guys working that?
So I'm going to be paid quarterly, so I'm still waiting for that first check. But it's going to be 50% of the profit from this book is going to go back to the Wolf Conservation Center, because essentially it's Trumpet's story. I just wrote it down, so it's got to go back to wolves somehow. So I felt that was really important to give back, especially to her. It's not her choice to be critically endangered. So it is what it is. She'll never know what happened here. She won't care if she did, but her priorities are her family. But I felt that it was important to be able to have her contribute in that way through her story and inspire people, and hopefully inspire young kids to get into wolf conservation. One of the things I liked about this, it was something that accidentally happened, I guess, is that it's not a feminist book, but the curator is female and the wolf is female. So I think it's something that can relate, especially to young girls, to get into this field, because this field is definitely one that's male dominated for a variety of reasons. But if some young girl sees that the curator is female, that could trigger something in her mind and say, I like this. I could do that. That could be me.
That's a fantastic point, and I agree with that. It's great to push these narratives forward. Do you have any plans? I know this is just the first one, but are we looking at a series of books? So is that something that's in your wheelhouse at the moment, or are you going to wait and see how things play out with Trumpet's story?
So a bit of both. Obviously, I do have to wait to see how things play out, but my original thought about this book was that it would be a series. Trumpet has got an amazing story to tell. So, this is just the beginning. The fact that she was the only one in her litter, that she's considered a miracle. It really is a nice start, but it is a start to her story. She's definitely impacted the species survival plan. She's made her contributions, and she also is done it in a way with a lot of grace. She's got an amazing character. She's shy, she's smart, she's strong, and she's also silly. So she's just an amazing wolf to be able to tell stories like this. And other wolves have their characteristics too. Hers just they pop off the page, basically.
That's fantastic. So please tell everybody where they can find the book, purchase it, and get their copy. Where can they find it?
So you can get it at Amazon, also Barnes & Nobles, Target also is selling the book. So mostly online sales at this point. I've been trying to get it into bookstores, which has been a little bit of a challenge. So more locally, I've been able to do that, but the online sales is really where people can get the book. And one thing I have said, I've done this myself. An amazing day for me was about a month ago. I was able to walk the book into my own elementary school and donate the book there. And, it just gave me an amazing feeling to know that kids, I was there as a young kid having a book read to me, but for those kids to hear that author went to that school and this wolf is in their state. So for them to hear that was just an amazing feeling. highlight of my life.
That is awesome. That is really, really cool. You're just bringing it back to the next generation. That's so wonderful. That is so great. And Regan, for you, just tell everybody where they can find out more information about the Wolf Conservation Center, about tours or programs or educational programs that they can contact you about. So please give everybody some information for your end.
So the Wolf Conservation Center's website is nywolf.org. So NewYorkWolf.org. And that can lead you to a lot of different avenues. We have information about our programs. Like Monica mentioned, we do require people to sign up for programs. They can't just show up. And they do fill quickly. So I would recommend certainly signing up for a program once it's available. But we do also have our live streaming webcams on our website. So all 34 of our wolves can be watched at any time of the day. We've also had wolves give birth in front of the cameras. So that's a great way to continue to learn more about wolves. And then we have all social channels as well. So our website does link to Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, everything like that. So
that's awesome. This is incredible. This is such a unique, I love this partnership. I love that this worked out for both of you. I think, and it's great for everyone to be interconnected and really help the extension of the work that you're all doing. And that I think all of us in some way across this country are trying to do to educate about wolves and help bring education to younger folks and adults and things like that. And I love that this has worked out so beautifully and so well. My last question from me for both of you. So I'll start with Regan first, and then Monica, you answer it there. So my final question is, when you hear the word wolf, what is the thing that comes to your mind?
I should have just fired something right back because now I'm thinking, I don't know, actually, because really wolves, as I'm sure you can all attest, wolves have really just become a part of my life. So it's not just, I think of a wolf and I think of Yellowstone, or I think of British Columbia, because I've been very fortunate to see wolves in the wild, but wolves are just kind of life. So kind of a sappy response, but I can't imagine a life without them. So that would be my response, as cheesy as it is.
Yeah, for me, initially I didn't, I liked wolves and thought they were interesting, but having volunteered there and kind of getting to know wolves a little bit better, it really is family that comes to my mind. I've seen, on camera or in person, the connections that they have with each other, the support that they give to each other. And it just reminds me of family.
I love it. I love, again, I can't thank you both
thank you guys very much
for joining Stephen and myself, for promoting the book. Yeah, this is great. And now we know we can do a 4-person Zoom, and it works out really well. So for those of you so we will have all the links, everyone who's listening, to the Wolf Conservation Center, to the links to get Trumpet the Miracle Wolf Pup. Again, that can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Look online for that. Also check out Wolf Conservation Center. Again, that's NewYorkWolf.org. Yes. Do I have that right? Org, yes. Thank you, Regan. We'll have all those things up there. So again, Monica Stahlmann, Regan Downey, thank you both so much for coming on. This was great, beautiful conversation. And please go out and buy the book and share it with your kids and share it with your cousins or your nephews and nieces, whoever it may be, who friends are looking for something to read. So thank you both for joining us. How's to everyone out there, and Stephen and I will be with you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Looking to support Wolf Connection or sponsor one of the wolves in our pack? Just go to wolfconnection.org, click on the Donate tab, and find out more information.